We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, the podcast where we dive deep into the art of songwriting, chat with some of the most exciting artists in the world and explore the stories behind their songs. I'm your host, Simon Fink, and thank you so much for joining us. Our guest this week is José González. The Swedish folk singer-songwriter first emerged onto the international stage in 2003 with his stunning debut album Veneer, propelled by the success of his now iconic single, Heartbeats. Known for his delicate guitar work, hushed vocals and deeply introspective lyricism, José has carved out a truly unique space in modern folk music. Over the years, he's released 5 studio albums, amassed over 1 billion streams worldwide, gone platinum in both the UK and Sweden, and in 2024, he was inducted into the Swedish Music Hall of Fame, a testament to the lasting impact of his musical work. Last week, he returned with his 5th studio record, titled Against the Dying of the Light, a reflective and thought-provoking album that grapples with the state of humanity at the moment, exploring the ideologies, both good and bad, that continue to shape the world around us. On today's episode, we're chatting with José González about the themes behind this new record and how he approaches tackling complex and often difficult subject matter in his songwriting. We also dive into how the process of releasing music and the industry more broadly has evolved since his early days and what it's been like taking this record on the road, including the long-standing connection he shares with Australian audiences. Now we want to say a massive thank you to Elise and Ash for their help with today's episode and remind everyone that the brand new José González record, Against the Dying of the Light, is out now. You'll find links in today's show notes on where you can purchase the record and follow José across all of his socials. While you are in the show notes, please make sure you subscribe to This Song Is Yours on whichever podcast app you use and go and follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We would really love it if you did. It does help us out and it keeps you up to date with new episodes, guests and everything else that we've got going on. All right, let's get into it. Here is our conversation with José González. Please welcome to This Song Is Yours, José González. Hello, sir. How are we? Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I am very happy to have you here. I'm very excited to be chatting songwriting with you today, to be talking about this brand new album, Against the Dying of the Light. It is out now when fans are listening to this episode. Firstly, congratulations on this beautiful record, another beautiful record from yourself. How are you feeling with it coming out now?
Thank you. No, it feels great. I'm very happy with the result. I feel like I put a lot of effort into it, as I usually do. But I think I spent a lot of time trying to figure out the guitars, a lot of time trying to figure out the words, and also a lot of time with the artwork. So yeah, there's a sense of relief. There's a sense of finally I get to put this out into the world and let the fans, let the music talk for itself.
Which I can imagine is quite a nice thing to do after it's sitting with you for so long. And as you said, there's so many different aspects of it to be considered: the artwork, the production, the sonics. That once it's kind of off your shoulders, it must be somewhat of a relief that there's some sense of letting go. Having a look, this is the 5th album, I believe, in your discography, and going back all the way to Veneer in 2003, I want to say that there's been a healthy rhythm of like 5 to 6 years between each album, which is kind of nice. I think that some albums, and no discredit to any artist, they might rush them out every 1 to 2 years. I think it's nice that it shows that there's a quite a lot of love, quite a lot of care that I believe you're pouring into this, that everything is correct, that everything is right. I'm curious to kind of start things off today. How has promoting a record changed in that time? I imagine that from when Veneer came out to this new one, there's different ways to do things now. There's different ways to get people to across the music that you're putting out.
Yeah, I guess some stuff is similar. Like yesterday, I played a very small show for inviting people, some journalists, some fans, and in a small place. And I remember how that was the way it all started when in Sweden when I was doing my very first shows. It wasn't about playing a big venue. It was more about playing for 30 or 20 people. And so that's similar, and great to see also that it is similar, that we don't lose everything to digital promotion. But what's new is, of course, the fact that we're talking like this. It feels very natural, I have to say. The video, the audio is very good. I feel like we could almost like be sitting in a radio station and talk to each other. So that's amazing, and that didn't happen even. I think in the pandemic that started to happen a bit, but it was always like slightly off and not perfect. So that has changed a lot. And then I guess one thing that has changed for me, I wrote knowing that I would have so many interviews. This time I actually took the time to write down a lot, as much as possible, before I started doing interviews. So I wrote down a document with comments to all the songs, comments to the artwork, links to references to books that I've been reading. So basically, like doing all the work up front instead of like doing that while talking to journalists.
I have to say, firstly, I do recognize the irony of asking that question while we are on a podcast in 2026. But also, as someone who has received maybe some of those documents that you're referring to that are sent out to music journalists and the like, it was incredibly detailed. It's very much appreciated. It was very thorough. So thank you for doing that. It's very kind of yourself.
Yeah, no, but I have to say it was fun to do it, and I also been sort of trying out the different AI tools that are out there. So it's been interesting to once in a while just sit down and write, and once in a while going out for walks and just talking about the album and the songs, and then like asking you to do a summary. so it's also experiment from my part.
I kind of love that though. Well, I want to say not only experimenting, maybe not research is the right term, but I know that on this album, firstly, sonically, a very, very gorgeous album. I do want to talk about some of the musical aspects of it and some of the production techniques in a little bit. I do want to address though that maybe not the overarching theme, but something that seems to be very prevalent in this record is the discussion of AI. It's the discussion of non-inclusive ideologies. It's some very serious, I want to say, subject matter. Some people might not necessarily correlate some of your previous work with such serious topics, but I'd love to know, when you go into the studio, when you're sitting down to begin a new record, is it clear what you want to cover and the thematics that you want to discuss? Or was that, as you kind of said, when walking around and just talking, that there was kind of a theme that kept organically showing up?
It is a theme that organically shows up. And it's been doing that for almost 20 years now, because from the second album and on, I was searching for topics that were not only about me or about relationships, but more like outward looking and more about humanity. And since then, I've had not all the songs, but one sentence here and there, maybe one song that has to do with worldview, with humanism, with and also having sort of frustration about dogmatic, superstitious ideologies. And so yeah, it's more like I'm what do you call it, a broken record. I found a topic and I'm sticking to it. But what happened with this album was that I felt like I can't only write about this. I need to write about something that's a bit more urgent, and that's the topic of existential risks. And that's where the first song comes in, "A Perfect Storm," and I'm so that, I guess, is the new part of this album, where I'm I used to consider myself very sort of, I would say, moderately optimistic about our future in terms of technologies, and I'm still extremely excited of the opportunities of all the technologies, but I'm also concerned. So that's like a new turn on this album, and once I did that, it felt like that almost overshadowed many of the other songs.
I think you've managed to balance the I guess to summarize it in such a small way, like the state of the world in a very good way across this record, with dealing with such subject matter where it is quite heavy. It can be quite depressing depending on which side of the ideology of a certain number of those things you kind of look at. Is there a trick to balancing how you manage to turn that into a song and into art and creativity? Because, as I said, like a number of these songs sound beautiful sonically, they're incredible, and I wonder where you find that duality of being able to write something that is so serious but still place it into a beautiful 4-minute folk song.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have different ambitions for each song, and one song might be to sort of be a call to action and almost like scare people, especially if they watch the video for A Perfect Storm. But then other songs are more in line with musically with the rest of my catalog. That's very soothing. It's very mellow, and I always feel like there needs to be, if I'm touching sort of heady subjects, there always needs to be an upside towards the end, so you end on a positive note. And for the album, I start with sort of A Perfect Storm, but I end with the song Joy, and where I sort of summarize my view that whatever happens during these turbulent years, we'll still be primates who can't help but sing. So I think meeting in person and dancing, singing, enjoying each other's company with food, these are things that brings joy to life, and we'll be continuing doing that even though things might be not perfect in other parts of the world.
I absolutely love that. And I realize that what I've been saying across this interview makes it maybe sound like this is a very, very serious album. There are moments of seriousness, but there are moments of levity and light as well, as you said. So thank you for kind of giving me that reminder. There is a track on this record, I want to say, it's a beautiful Spanish language track. I'm going to probably mispronounce it, so I do apologize. Is it Pajarito?
Pajarito. Yeah.
Pajarito.
Yeah,
which I believe...
Little bird.
Yes.
Little bird in Spanish. And I started, it was one of the very first songs on the album, and I felt like this... on the previous album, I did a song for Laura, my daughter, and Lilla Gumman, Lilla G. And on this album, I also felt like I can't just do one for her. I need to do one for him too. And that one is really like very, very lighthearted and about finding your own way in life and learning stuff and learning to fly.
It was an incredible track. Having recently become a father myself and then learning that it was written about your son, I did find a connection with that, and I thought it was, just beautifully written. Wondering whether you might indulge me a little bit more. I did have another track on the record which I kind of really loved. For Every Dusk was a song that I found myself kind of coming back to, putting it on or pre-saving it on my playlist. You know how music works these days, and really interested in. It sounds like the guitars are kind of multi-tracked or triple-tracked or stacked on top of one another. Wondering whether you might be able to share the making of that song and kind of where it came from and what inspired it.
Yeah, it's a style of playing that's inspired by music from Mali, bands like Tinari Wen and Ali Farka Toure, and it's a style that I've been sort of imitating at home for fun. But with the years, I've been writing songs that are more and more similar to that style. So this track, I think, is I guess the most similar to those sounds from the Sahel Desert, and it's. Most of the songs on the album I'm trying to do with just one guitar and just one vocal. So I do my demos and I try until I sort of get a version that I like. But with this one, I felt like I was changing the guitar all the time. I didn't plan as much what to play at the exact moment. So it ended up being 2 guitars. I just took two guitars that were had their like quirks and faults, but if you play them at the same time, they sort of it sounds like 2 people are jamming together. And so that was also like musically it sounds more similar to what I've been hearing from that part of the world. And talking about themes, for every dusk there's a dawn. So that's also like trying to point that the even if you leave a certain dogmatic ideology, that doesn't mean that you will have a empty life. It's the opposite. I think can be true.
I kind of love that. Thank you very much for sharing that. It is always, I find it, joyful to find the different layers of what maybe different songs mean and then what is kind of hidden underneath that. Wondering whether you might share, you probably picked up that we are primarily a songwriting podcast talking about music. Wondering you might be able to share where you got your start and what was your original introduction to songwriting?
So I grew up in a family that was slightly musical, not completely. It was academic, refugees from Argentina. So the records that were at home were a mix of Latin American music and stuff like Beatles and some classical music. So a bit less than a meter, I usually say, of LPs. My earliest memories of trying to write myself was I started to learn Beatles songs and bossa nova songs and learning the chords and also some classical songs. Then when I started to write, it was in the line of Paul Simon basically having a way of finger picking that was similar to Silvio Rodriguez, Paul Simon, but the lyrics were many times pretty cheesy. So it wasn't until 2000 when I released my first 7-inch, first with Junip and then my solo single. That I had 2 songs that I felt like, okay, this is the style I want to do, and those 2 songs were Deadweight and Velveteen and Hints. And that was a bit more monotonous, a bit more repetitive guitar patterns, and less like classic folk structure. So something along those lines that I've been sort of trying out stuff since my teenage years. But when I was 20 something, that's when I sort of found the style that later became Veneer.
Could you tell immediately at that time that was, I guess, the sound that maybe clicked for yourself? Like that was at that time and has continued to be somewhat or built upon the José González sound?
I mean, it was me doing these demos and I would play them for a couple of friends and judging from their reactions, they really enjoyed Deadweight and Velveteen and Hints. But it wasn't, I mean, it was a 7-inch that a couple of people found. So it wasn't until like a year and a half later that got picked up by 2 major label guys that started a minor label. And they were extremely excited, and they would even like play the songs through the telephone and make other people excited just by playing them through the phone. So that's when I understood that this had potential. I mean, I saw myself as a lo-fi home recording artist and look forward to release an album, maybe sell a couple of thousand at best, but it became it come up in number 2 in Sweden. So that's so 2003 was the year when I switched from being at the university studying to all of a sudden going out and touring in Sweden. But yeah, that's when I realized that this was getting a lot of attention and was appreciated.
I feel like if the phones are not known for having the best audio quality, and if people are, playing your music over a telephone and the other people on the other end are getting excited, that there's obviously something of quality there. So I absolutely love that story. I do need to ask, obviously, a lot of Australian fans in love with your music, with everything that you kind of do. Having a quick look on your website, there are tour dates, I believe, beginning in Europe this month, the US next month, and then back in Europe right through till November. Might be an obvious and a little bit of a selfish question. Can we maybe expect to see you back in Australia maybe next year or at some point in the future?
No, definitely. I think next year is when it's happening. And my agents are struggling because they want to fit in the whole world, but I'm not giving them enough time to do all the trips. But yeah, next year I think, and it's always fun to come back to Australia. It's still one of the countries where I've had the best reception with my music. So, and it's always great to be there when it's dark and snowy in winter in the north, and come down and have good food and hang out with very friendly people.
Look, we will be very excited. Whenever those dates are announced, we'll make sure that we post them and share them across the podcast social media channels. I do have to ask, Jose, we usually wrap up asking, I guess, what they're currently listening to. Is there anything musically that you've got on high rotation at the moment?
I mean, I have my favorites that I usually have, like Nina Simone and Curtis Mayfield. But I also have sort of High Life from Ghana, or Sir Victor Waifo, I think is one of the names. What else? I love my dance music too.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole family likes so some reggaeton and
mm-hmm.
And then there's a compilation from South Africa, and Next Stop Soweto. That's the first track on my 8-hour list that I like to set up, play a couple of times a week, and have it on shuffle. But that first song I really like. I like how it propels me into a good mood.
Look, it sounds like it's a very, very versatile and diverse kind of listening habits. It sounds like you have. But José González, thank you very much for coming onto the podcast and chatting to us about this brand new record. It is called Against the Dying of the Light. It is out now when people are listening to this conversation. But thank you again for coming to have a chat with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.